Yeah.
Okay, there's some presentation material here, but this is a birds of a feather session, so we're really hoping this is like a interactive discussion collaboration. So even despite the room layout, maybe if you could come up close, and we do want to have everyone involved in this and not just listening to all the great information that they're going to share.
So yes, it is interactive and there will be bribes. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I am Rochelle Alvers. I am a storage management architect at Broadcom, and I'm also the chair of the Scalable Storage Management Technical Work Group in SNIA, which is developing the Swordfish Storage Management API. It's a standard. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And my counterpart is Xing.
I'm Xing Yang. I'm the lead architect in Open SES. I work for Huawei. Before joining Huawei, I worked at EMC. I'm also a contributor in Kubernetes and CSI. I co-lead the volume snapshot project in Kubernetes 6 storage. Also a co-reviewer in Cinder and Manila in OpenStack.
So we're going to trade off a little bit here, just setting the background for standards, how things are structured a little bit, what we've been doing developing the storage management standards for Swordfish and in general, and then Xing will talk a little bit about OpenSDS, how it's using Swordfish in its ecosystem. So kind of one of the use cases for Swordfish in the open source, OpenStack ecosystem. So, what is Swordfish? Swordfish is a REST-based management standard. It's an extension of Redfish, if anyone's heard of Redfish. It's a pure extension there. It's not a separate standard. Uses all of their protocol stack. We didn't define anything new. We just basically added the schema that focus on storage. So if there's a little bit of storage in Redfish, and we basically cover every other storage use case. One of the other things we've done within storage, within Swordfish, is we've actually developed a class of service-based API, which is one of the reasons it's really appealing to OpenSDS. So who's developing this? This one basically talks about, both who's developing Redfish and who's developing Swordfish, and who cares about both of them. So these are all the vendors that are engaged in actually developing the standard and supporting the development of that. So you can see a lot of server vendors and component vendors that are working on Redfish. And then you can see a lot of classic storage vendors on the Swordfish side, but then you see a lot of overlap companies that are developing both. You also see a little bit of some research folks and things like that also in the mix. So also to set a little context, when you're developing a standard, it's not just, here's the API, now go. There's actually a lifecycle associated with all of it. So you basically, the first phase is describing and basically specifying the standard. Then there's kind of prescribe, implement, and test. And for that, you actually need things to kind of, a broader ecosystem than just the standard itself. So in the first phase, there's really just describe. You have the standards. And then after that, you start to get a broader ecosystem, and this includes other standards groups and broader organizations. It's not just vendors. So here you can see things like some of our partner organizations, OCP, the Open Data Center project in China, and OpenSDS all fall into this as just this, how we prescribe more specific use cases around the use of those standards. And then you start to see implementations hopping on in. These are things like, and again, tool sets, and this is really largely, this is all focusing on what's happening in the open communities and in the standard space. So these are not even talking about vendor implementations at this point. But these also follow a similar timeline. So you have things like integrations into OpenStack. You have integrations into OpenBMC, partnering work with NVMe Express, We have huge open tool sets available available from Redfish. We're expanding the tool sets available in the SNIA and DMTF tool sets for Swordfish as well. And then everything that OpenSDS is doing, including additional tool sets, are also all available here in the implementation side. And then testing the conformance to those. So Redfish and Swordfish both have conformance test suites that they're developing to say, did I implement something the way I should have? And OpenSDS will be doing the same thing. So
I'll talk about what is OpenSDS. OpenSDS is an open source project under Linux Foundation aimed at addressing storage management integration challenges in scale-out cloud-native environment and also in traditional IT environment. There are many companies working together on OpenSDS. We have a TSC, Technical Steering Committee, with members from IBM, Intel, Western Digital, Fujitsu, Lenovo, and Huawei. And we also have an End-User Advisory Committee. Our end users are actually participating in the design of OpenSDS features. OpenSDS is an open, autonomous data platform. So just like self-driving cars, we want to build a data platform that is self-managing, self-healing. That's the long-term goal. So in this diagram, you can see we have a northbound plugin project called Sushi on top that has plugins for container orchestration systems such as Kubernetes, Mesos, Docker, and Cloud Foundry, and also other northbound ecosystems such as OpenStack and VMware. OpenSDS provides common control plane to manage block, file, object storage, supporting heterogeneous storage systems, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud. For insight and intelligence, we are building a telemetry service that integrates with Prometheus, and we're building a machine learning module for anomaly detection. And for orchestration and automation, we're building a service that allows users to customize their workflows for automating volume provisioning and data migration and more. We also have multi-cloud data control that allows data to be migrated across multiple clouds, such as AWS, Azure, GCP, and Ceph object stores. We're also working on object lifecycle management that allows user to define policies so that data can be migrated automatically from one tier to another based on the policies. OpenSDS has profiles designed based on Swordfish spec. So for the profiles, we have properties for provisioning, for data protection, replication, migration, snapshot, and you can also have custom profiles properties. For provisioning properties, we have data storage line of service that's directly from the Swordfish spec. So we have a recovery time objective, provisioning policy, whether it's thin or thick, whether space is efficient or not. And I/O connectivity line of service includes access protocol, whether it's iSCSI, FC, or RBD, or other protocols, and maximum IOPS, maximum bandwidth. And for replication, we have data protection line of service. So that includes GPO, GTO, that includes RPO, RTO, and RGO, and also replica type. That's a mirror for replication. And for we also added replica infos from the Swordfish spec. That includes the replica update mode, whether it's sync or async, and consistency enabled or not. And for a snapshot, you can set your schedule to determine how often you want to take the snapshot, and also set a retention policy by the total number of snapshots you want to keep, or how long you want to keep a snapshot. So this shows how to provision storage for Kubernetes using profiles designed based on Swordfish. Excuse me. So admin will first creates a profile in OpenSDS. Then admin creates a storage class in Kubernetes referencing that profile. And the user will request a PBC specifying the storage class. And that request gets passed through the OpenSDS CSS plugin to OpenSDS controller. And OpenSDS controller gets the information of the profile, so it knows which storage backend to communicate to provision the storage. OpenSDS has a Cinder driver that uses Cinder to provision storage. We also have a native driver for LVM, Ceph, and other third-party drivers. So that's a quick intro of OpenSDS. So now it's time for a discussion. Since this is a bird or feather session, so it's mostly for discussion.
Okay, these were just, first of all, if there's any questions, we won't force everyone to go through this. So it's a little incentive to not, if anyone has questions about Swordfish or OpenSDS or what's the meaning of life, or what's your favorite character on Game of Thrones, whatever. And who's mad that they killed Lyanna?
Spoilers.
Oh, sorry. Seriously, you didn't watch? Okay. Otherwise, we can just kind of go back and kind of lead folks into asking, kind of what some of the questions are. But one of the purposes of doing this as a BoF is for us to kind of say, these are kind of some of the kind of things that we're working on. This is how OpenSDS is engaging and leveraging Swordfish. What kinds of questions do you guys have about, standards in general, about Swordfish, about what OpenSDS is? Why would you use standards-based integrations? Where do folks have questions? Vanna over here, Sean, there's a microphone in the middle, or Sean can wander around, and we have bribes. They may not be the best bribes in the world, but they're the ones we have. We have wireless chargers for really good questions. We have Swordfish stickers. We have, I forget what else we have. We have
Posters, screen wipes.
So looking at Swordfish and as well looking at OpenSDS, who sits on the other side? Who's going to orchestrate these things? Because OpenSDS needs somebody to organize the information that you want to accomplish through Kubernetes.
I think if you look at this diagram, I think that answers your question. So OpenSDS has a CSS plugin that communicates with Kubernetes, and then OpenSDS controller.
So you're just going to be PV driven?
PP driven. This will be so this is if you want to directly say, okay, let's provision a PV in Kubernetes. So that's how that gets started. But we are also working on this automation and orchestration that I mentioned a little bit earlier. So that user can build their own workflows so they can put all the pieces together.
Okay, and how do you represent those? Just YAML or whatever?
Yes, it's going to user will create a YAML file,
okay.
And then in that you can define what kind of actions you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's more stickers over there. Anyone that wants stickers, you can grab those.
I like this. Sean's going to get his steps in for the day.
So integration with OpenStack is through Cinder, right? And so the Cinder works as like API translator to OpenSDS API from OpenStack's Cinder API. Is that correct? I mean,
Separately from the OpenSDS integration, we will have potentially multiple different ways to integrate with OpenStack. There is already an Ironic driver that integrates Redfish. We'll be extending that for, bare metal integrations for direct attach, hyperconverged, hyperscaler kinds of types of solutions. For larger storage solutions, we'll be developing a Cinder integration. For filers, we'll be developing Manila integrations. And then the OpenSDS will basically sit on top of all of those things and consume the storage on the top end of those.
So I just want to add a little bit for OpenSDS, we have two ways to integrate with Cinder and Manila. One way is just, Richard has said, so we can use Cinder Manila to provision storage for OpenSDS. Another way is we have already written a Cinder compatible adapter. So that sits at the northbound. So then we can actually, OpenSDS can provision storage for Nova. So basically, the adapter is going to convert the Cinder APIs to OpenSDS APIs, so that OpenSDS controller knows what to do.
okay.
So we have two-way integration.
Thanks. Oh, thank you.
There's some nice chargers there.
Oh, yep, wireless chargers. I think that one actually gets a.
That? Yeah?
Oh, yep.
Good.
I got to talk about future items on the roadmap from that one. So.
Yeah.
Is there another question? Oh, question over here. Oh, and some over here.
Where was that? Okay.
Just on the Cinder integration, there was a Redfish compliant. There's a Redfish compliant driver in progress at the moment in Cinder as well.
Yes, that is work being done by the DMTF, and we will. That's for some basic integration, and then we'll be looking at on the storage side, also looking at what they're doing for expanding that for other types of storage use cases. So the same way they've got the base Ironic integration, we'll extend that for for additional Swordfish. So I mentioned when I started this, I said, we are a pure extension to Redfish. We have weekly or biweekly meetings between the two organizations. They're not really separately. They're built by separate organizations, but we have biweekly meetings where we talk about what's going on and how we partner with these things. Right now, they've got contractors off working on extending the Ironic integration and working on the Cinder integration. It's on our roadmap to do that later. We've got some other things that are a little higher priority for us right now, one of which is getting all the OpenSDS stuff done. But we want to get to the OpenStack stuff hopefully later this year. So
Maybe just this is so there was a Intel OSD driver that was made for Cinder. It's not merged. It's just in development at the moment.
Is Robert here? There are some Intel RSD guys here that could answer those questions for you.
It needed CI, and I think we'll merge it very soon.
Okay.
So, right, Sean? Yeah, it's close. Yeah.
Sean McGinnis. Pleasure to meet you. David.
Swordfish integration or with Cinder or Redfish?
That was an Intel RSD question.
No, I know, but
So there's Redfish Cinder integration work happening now, and we haven't done the Swordfish. The Swordfish stuff is coming later on the roadmap.
Okay, I thought Redfish was mainly hardware level, and Swordfish is the storage level. So maybe I'm missing something here.
Could that be like Ironic integration or something?
No, they already have an Ironic driver. They are doing a Cinder driver. I haven't dug into the details of what use cases they're addressing. So Redfish is more server. The server networking. They've got some composable systems. So I don't know exactly which use cases they're putting into Cinder. I only saw that it popped up on the roadmap and talked about it some last week, but I haven't gone and dug into what use cases they're adding right now.
Okay, I'm the PTL, so that just threw me off because I've not seen anything for that come through. I'm curious what it would be, but we would love to see a Swordfish support come in place.
Yeah, it's on our roadmap. We have limited resources right now, and so we've been engaging in a couple other areas, and right now we've got OpenSDS, we've got a bunch of PowerShell integrations and the Windows Admin Center integration coming out in the next 3 months, and then we hope to get to the OpenStack stuff as soon as we get those out. Maybe I can get your contact information. We can sort out exactly what the use cases are that they're working on for the Redfish Cinder driver, because we need to figure that out. So, to clarify what the Swordfish pieces need to be for that too. Yeah,
that'd be good. And what are the plans in the roadmap as far as how much of the integration is going to happen on the Cinder side versus direct OpenSDS development?
Right. So on the Cinder side, it will be, I'm sure, focused on, think of what are all the use cases for traditional storage and, traditional integration there, and then we'll look at, Shin could talk about, what you've been looking at in addition to that, and hopefully we can leverage a lot of that integration for what a northbound OpenSDS interface would need to use as well.
Because from an OpenStack perspective, the multi-cloud transfer of data with OpenSDS is of interest, definitely. But then the more synergy there can be, between the two pieces, I think the better. Instead of reinventing the wheel, developing the wheel together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I won't take up, I'm sure others have questions.
I think there were a couple over here.
So we were wondering about the integration with other clouds such as AWS and GCP, not just Cinder. What is the state of that at the moment?
Let's see. So for management interfaces for other clouds, there's two dimensions to that. One of which is data path management. One is manageability of the clouds and of the configuration of the clouds. So for the data path management, I'm looking at Mark here because he's he's videoing at the same time, so I would point to him to kind of jump in and help answer the questions. From a standards perspective, we have we treat those two things a little bit differently. So we have another standard, CDMI, the Cloud Data Management Interface, and another initiative that focuses on driving standards there. And so we defer a portion of that to that interface rather than looking at it directly from Swordfish. But we also have a gap on our road, or a portion on our roadmap for Swordfish for anyone who wants to come in and add the functionality to manage object stores. And so we cover block and file. We will add an object. We just haven't had anyone step up to say, we want to define that for you. So those are kind of the two places we would put that. One is managing the object stores. The other one is what's already in CDMI as a standard. Those are the two spots in standards we'd put those.
So, sorry, that was really loud. So is that written just now, or is it on the to-do list?
They're on the roadmap with no distinct time.
Okay.
What's on the CDMI roadmap, I'd have to ask Mark to comment to.
So people could get involved to write those integrations?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We have over 160 member companies already in SNIA, and anyone who's already in one of those companies is welcome to step up and participate. Anybody else is actually welcome to contribute materials or join to do that. I point that out because a lot of people don't realize their companies are already member companies. So it's actually a little bit easier lift in that case.
Thanks.
And for the the object APIs, so we do have a S3 API support right now. So our multi-cloud data control feature supports that. We support AWS, GCP, Azure, and also Ceph Object Store. Yeah. So if Swordfish has the object API defined, we can integrate with that as well. Yeah, right now we just integrate with the S3, basically.
Hi, Rachel. So I'm coming from the storage vendor perspective in this whole ecosystem. I see 3 different organizations like Kubernetes and then OpenSDS and then obviously, Swordfish. So, by the way, love the Swordfish, simulator. What would it take for somebody to go back and one location kind of use this, all that you have drawn out on the right side and say, okay, I need this, and here's how you get it, and then run something locally to kind of get it up and running as a proof of concept to start developing or even start, playing with it and trying to give some feedback as to what changes might be needed.
So is that for like this entire Kubernetes and OpenSDS stack?
All of that from Kubernetes to the OpenSDS to the actual, then the SNIA piece, the Swordfish piece that comes into it, right? Because there are at least three different that I can see communities that are involved, right? And then
I can take that. So OpenSDS is an implementation of Swordfish. So we actually have a way for you to install all of this, and then you can install that. Then that will install Kubernetes and OpenSDS, and then whatever storage system you want to use below that, and then you can provision that way. But that's all the profiles designed right now is designed based on Swordfish.
So from an accessibility, OpenSDS stuff is all available on GitHub. So you can go download all the latest bits and pieces out there too.
Yeah.
And I should point out the southbound support in OpenSDS to talk to a Swordfish-enabled storage device is still in the works. So that's not there today. You said you're a storage vendor. Do you have a Swordfish API?
I've been working with Rachel to kind of figure that out. So,
okay.
I have one other question. If you can go back to the slide before this, I have where there was another.
Come on. Okay. Hello.
This one?
Yes.
Work? No, stuck.
Maybe. There we go.
Oh, one more, please. I'm sorry. Yeah, right here. So my question is on the Insight and Intelligence Services. The RESTful API sits on top of it, and who's defining that one? And I'm trying to compare this to
question.
the slide on the very last.
So this diagram, those are our OpenSDS APIs. So right now we do have APIs for block file that's defined in OpenSDS. We are actually in our API right now, we're just using Swordfish to define our profiles. We're actually working on a more tighter integration, so supporting the Swordfish API directly. That is still in the works. So that's that piece. But for the other part, I don't see APIs from the Swordfish, right? So if there are APIs designed for the rest of them, then we can definitely integrate with those as well. But right now, we're integrating with the block and the file side because that's what we see in the Swordfish spec.
I think so.
I was a little late, sorry. So I was just curious, for the simulator, does that also include telemetry data?
The simulator right now is basically just covers everything in the schema. So telemetry data is by default included. We call it both a simulator and an emulator. But the emulator It includes all the schema, but it doesn't include any enforcement at this point. So it's kind of up to you to make it actually make the data real or not. So the good news is yes, it does, but
But it's on me.
yes, exactly.
Got it. Thanks.
So just for context, one of the things I was mentioning is I mentioned we have a bunch of open source tools. One of those is what we call the Redfish, I think it's Redfish Interface Emulator, Swordfish. We have extensions for Swordfish, the emulator on top of that. And it's a really easy way. You can basically bring it up, and it's done in Python. And it's an environment that you can use to customize to see what a running instance of Swordfish would look like. You can actually modify it. All of the Swordfish portions are dynamic, which means you can do CRUD against them. And it doesn't have any enforcement behind it of what Swordfish behaviors are supposed to be. But you can actually bring it up and say, here's what is, hey, I have a running instance of Swordfish in the 5 minutes it takes you to watch Sean's lovely video of how to get the system up and running. And so it's it's one of our nice starting points to say how you can start working with Swordfish. It's also a nice, really nice tool to use if you're on the client side, like OpenSDS is, to have something to work against when you don't have real systems. Another partner of ours, the Texas Tech University, has an extension to that where they've built a scale-out Swordfish data center system, and that's also available in open source. What it does is it will stand up hundreds or thousands of instances of Swordfish systems, which are basically emulators, in minutes. And you can customize those as much as you want to look like whatever kind of system you want in a very short period of time. So you can basically stand up a 1,000 node data center in 5 minutes, customize it the way you want. And they've also built a little nice GUI, so you can drive the whole thing through a GUI, or you can drive it all through command line or whatever. But it builds those all in containers so that it's really easy to tear up or tear up and put down, put up and tear down. So those are just some of the tools that we have to make it a lot easier to build things, and make it so partners like OpenSDS can design and test and along with the assumption that the systems aren't behaving like real systems, but they're actually in a lot of ways better because you don't have to have 1,000 instances of a real system. Is there another question? Okay, how are we doing on time? We have 5 minutes left. We're going to go back to that slide that asks questions, makes you answer questions about yourself.
What's the project name for the last thing that you talked about? It is part, if there's not a link on SNIA.com/swordfish, right now I will get one there by the end of the day. But it's called the Swordfish Data Center Simulator, and it is done by the CAC project, which always makes me feel like I'm coughing up a hairball. But the Compute and Autonomic Center project funded by the NSF that Texas Tech participates in. And I'm saying all of this while he's looking to see if it's there, and if it's not there, I'll get it up there by the end of the day. I was actually just looking at GitHub.
Yeah, I know it's out on GitHub. It should be the Swordfish Data Center Simulator.
Yeah, from the user's perspective, we don't want something like vendors, extensions, APIs. So
Right.
From the standard point of view, how is discussion around vendor-specific features compared to the standard features? And do you allow vendors to extend their APIs or not?
Both ways. We allow both. There's a section in all of the Redfish schema, which applies to Swordfish schema as well, for any OEM extensions. So unlike some previous versions, it's actually a very standardized way to allow OEM extensions. However, we do prefer people not to have to use those extensively because clients don't like them. And so what we do is we ask people to minimize their use of OEM extensions. And once they've identified functionality, to bring it back to, and we ask the clients to do this too when they're working with OEMs, when they're working with systems that have OEM extensions, to ask the vendors to bring them back in. We have a company right now that is actually bringing in a bunch of things they've implemented as OEM extensions, and we're evaluating them. Historically, we basically said, you need a couple of companies to go say, yes, I would do that. And then, it's a really low bar, right? If you get a couple companies, 2 companies to say, yes, that should be a standard feature, then we move it in as a standard feature. So it's actually pretty trivial once you get someone to bring the function in. The main thing is also getting the clients to put some pressure on it. We're trying to learn a lot in Swordfish of things from past standards. So we're doing a lot of upfront work right now on standardizing status codes, behaviors on events, things like that. So Red Hat has actually been really good at this. They've provided a lot of input on where they had to write custom code for every vendor. And it was things like create LUN. Yes, that's a standard message, a standard command, but everyone returned, all their return codes from that on even a successful create LUN were different. So we're doing a lot of standardization that says when you return, it's not a bunch of vendor-specific stuff. It is formatted specifically this way with this return code and these values. So we've asked folks even, to not even use vendor-specific formatting. And any place folks can bring us those questions, particularly if it's the clients, we're trying to incorporate that as proactively as possible.
Great, thanks.
Okay, any other questions?
We might be out of time.
Nope, we've got about 30 seconds left. All right, I think there were a couple more folks that should need to get chargers, but with that, I think we will, 2 more things to wrap up here. Just a couple places, a couple quick pointers for resources. This is yours, let you do this one.
Yeah, so just how do you get in contact with us? That's our website, GitHub, Twitter, Slack, so just join us. We are accepting new members. We have a TAC and UAC, and also accept new members to join us, contribute, and work on OpenSDS.
All right, and similarly, Swordfish, I've already mentioned this URL once, but you should be able to find everything at SNIA.org/swordfish. We have a ton of information referencing a whole bunch of other sites, but you can find every link you need to find those at SNIA.org/swordfish. There we go.
Thank you.